former Queensland Red superstars Aiden Toa and Dallin Murphy. Lads, how are we?
Hey boy, yeah, mate, good, really good.
Very, very excited to be here, obviously.
Bit nervous.
A little bit nervous. On our bench, the battlers, the gruesome twosome, Big Fat Darcy, Ryan Fellini.
Fellow Terration, mate.
What do I ask you? I don't really have a question, mate. How are you? I love you, mate.
Yo ma, and welcome to the PAC Show, proudly brought to you by PAC Athletic Club and DoubleTake Sports, the show that brings you all the reviews, the previews, the highlights, the lowlights, news and interviews from rugby here in Australia and around the world. I'm a little bit out of breath. I was doing a bit of a stretch before we came on. Oh, sorry, I'm fat. My name's J-Ball, and joining me as per usual, Queensland Red superstars themselves, Aiden Toa and Dallin Murphy. And then on the battlers bench, welcome back once again, Big Fat Das. Hey, Big Fat Das, how are ya?
I'm good, J-Boy. How are you?
I don't know what's good.
That was like, you see in court when they're like, got someone on the stand and they're like asking questions like the Johnny Depp trials. Like, did you see Johnny Depp put his finger? And he's like, yes, I did. But how are you, Big Fat Das? You got over the Penguins' kiss last week. Where were you the week before that, mate?
Toowoomba?
Yeah.
Is that what I told you? Yeah. Just trying to remember all my lies.
Yeah. Late scratching,
I think so, I
mate.
said Toowoomba. Yeah. But hey, let's not dwell on that. I'm here.
How you feeling, though, man? You
Good. Great.
You good?
Yeah.
You got some nice sandals going on, man.
Yeah.
Leaning into that dad life, huh?
I thought Friends would be wearing his Crocs or whatever. But
He was.
Here we are.
He only got in late last night, so I think there was no chance Friends was going to be here this week, man. There was absolutely no chance. But we've got a massive show this evening. Joining us, unfortunately, Grace Hamilton has strength and conditioning tonight with the Wallaroos from 6 till 7, so she can't join us. But we do have one of the Western Force's favourite sons. It is Ian Pryor. He's going to be joining us. We've got PAC News as per usual. We've got the Battlers bench is going to be running a few things tonight as well. Plus, we're going to be reviewing all the action from the Shoot Shield QPR, the Wallaroos matches last week, as well as Super Rugby. Shit's been going Godzilla. So, without further ado, let's get into PAC News. How good's that?
That's pretty good.
Yeah, that went very well. Well done, Zach. You've earned that Subway, brother. First off the bat, how good is this? What is it, Dal? Is it huge?
It's massive.
It's huge. That's right. Australia has been announced as the 2027 Men's Rugby World Cup and 2029 Women's Rugby World Cup. Oh, man, I am fizzing at the bunghole for this, Dal. This is exactly what the game needed at this very moment.
Yeah, it's been touted as a golden era of Australian rugby. Obviously, we got the British and Irish Lions 2025 coming out this way, and then obviously the World Cup 2 years later, and then the Women's World Cup 2 years later.
And Com Games in Victoria between those two.
Massive. So for Australian rugby, as a whole, leading to the 2032 Olympics, it's a huge opportunity for them to get it right.
Hectic, dude.
Yeah.
Massive. And this is like it's so funny. You see all these people reacting about South Africa not getting it and it's a boon on the game. And it's like, no. Like, we are set up for this. And I think it will be one of the best World Cups. Because I just think, like, you've got a nation like Australia that, as I said, this is exactly what we needed right now. And we're in a position where, like Dos, we were sort of talking before we went live, we're in a position where the Wallabies, come 2027... you can't help but think that they're probably, if all things go the way they should be going, will be right up there.
Oh yeah, mate, 100%. And that's exactly, that adds that, that extra bit of excitement is, by 2027, we've got a group of guys now who, if we can keep them together, and not saying that they won't be, because I think they're going to be highly competitive next year, but in 2027, primed to win a World Cup on home soil, after we got so close 24 years ago.
And $100 million is predicted coming into the game before the World Cup even commences through that Lions tour and also the England tournament, the England series that's just coming up. This is an absolute boon for the game here in Australia, Big Fat Das. Are you? What are your plans for it? Do you reckon you're going to get amongst it a little bit, mate?
Might do a like a Buddha Handy World Cup tour experience, but we'll just take a bus around Brisbane and
Logan.
yeah. Show them all the sights. And mate, how good's the World Cup going to be?
It's going to be unbelievable.
I remember the last World Cup in Australia. Even watching the lower pool games, some of those countries just battling it out. Each was the Japanese side in Townsville, and they that was their base in Townsville, and all the locals got involved watching their games or whatever. And I hope that happens again. This one.
Where were you? How old were you last time it was here?
43, I think. How long ago? 20-something years?
No, it was 2003. So
Yeah,
you
2003.
would have been 17, 18.
Prime time.
Yeah, prime time.
Oh,
What
that's where it's at.
What establishment?
Mate,
Tinderly's?
the Orient.
The Orient, yeah.
The Trans.
Transcontinental.
Transcontinental. Oh, man. Hotel LA.
Yes.
Yeah. No.
Mate, it's going to be massive, and it's predicted that it'll bring $2.8 billion just into the nation's economy. The biggest thing, Hamish McLennan has actually said that there's been discussions taking place over the last few years about how they actually use that money. And he said, well, David Cody has come out and said, the idea is that we're not going to piss this up against the wall. It has to be invested in the game.
Rugby league players. Oh. Sorry, you go.
We'll get to that. But that right there, at least, I mean, on paper, and I think, I think the fact that what we saw after the 2003 World Cup, where that 10 years afterwards was an absolute shambles, Dow, surely they've learnt from the past.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, but I mean, and it's good that they've come out and they've
Well, you
actively
hope so.
said we are
That's-
going to invest in the grassroots with this. Like, it's the intention, it's the idea that obviously this isn't going to happen again.
No,
We won't get another World Cup for 50 years. You can't help but think. Like, with the game growing around the world, the USA obviously being one of them. Like, obviously, this is our last chance to get such a huge windfall.
Yeah, absolutely. And they've got to get it right. They've got to get the right people invested. They've got to get the right people around the whole project and make sure it's successful. We, like Aiden just said, have a core group of players now that are coming through. They're going to be extremely successful. That's going to happen. Now they need to get the rest of it right.
I am rock hard, eh?
Yeah.
This is going to be so sick, dude. We have 10 years of ridiculous footy on our doorstep.
Yeah.
Oh, mate, fizzing at the bunghole. That said, I'd sort of just touched on it before as well. The fact that the USA was announced as a 2031 and 2033 men's and women's Rugby World Cup host nation. Big Fat Dash, you spent a bit of time playing over there.
Yep.
So you've obviously seen the game firsthand over there and the progression they've made. I mean, between now and, 9 years from now, you can only imagine that will probably be the sickest World Cup, in my opinion.
Mate, big time. I remember they have one of the largest rugby playing bases in the world, I think.
Fourth largest
Fourth
at
largest.
one stage, yeah.
At one stage. We've now
A few
downgraded
years
a bit.
ago, I don't know, I haven't looked at it in a few years.
And, mate, and this is America. They're just going to do it big. Like,
Yeah.
they
I
would
just
go to
love-
the opening of an envelope,
Mate,
man. So,
they're gonna
like,
have games in Las Vegas. It's going to be awesome, mate. That Chicago field or whatever that they did the
Soldier Stadium
mate,
or
it's
whatever.
So good. And like, although they don't really know the difference between rugby league and rugby union, that doesn't matter. They're just going to love it. They're going to get involved. They're just going to love throwing money at it.
if
That's
they,
going to boost it.
I hope that they keep the same commentators they had for that All Blacks USA game. With like, Israel Dad goes in for the 5. Loving
yeah,
it.
he does.
Yeah, Chips
touches
Blanche
it
and I at
down.
1 a.m. munted watching that, laughing our asses off. It was the best. But
Mate, you're going to go big.
But that said, they are a country that, they've got stadiums. They've got several stadiums, not just one or two. They've got several stadiums over 100,000. They've got a dozen or so over 60,000, which is the prerequisite for the major events. Like, they are set up for this.
Yeah.
And they've got 10 years to right the ship. And with the progression that MLR's going, you can't help but think, do you reckon they would actually be a force by then, considering, like, the spotlight's going to be on them? And if we know anything about the Seppos, it's like they love sticking it to the man. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, they love
I
having
mean-
the camera on them and then going and then showing everyone up.
Yeah, like Dale touched on it before. There's such a good group of core players here in Australia. This struggle will be to keep them together. I think America getting the rights to that 2031 World Cup is going to be one of the biggest threats to that. They're a country that is mad about sport. Das is right. It doesn't matter what sport it is. They will go crazy for it. with a Rugby World Cup, mate, you only need to see the progression of their sevens team over the last decade.
Yeah.
You know, I played a sevens tournament in 2008, and America were terrible. You know, they were the easy beats. And
Half the team played for Sunnybank.
And in the last couple of years, you know, they were in the cup finals. You know, they're competing because they've invested a bit of time and effort into it. With this, you know, and I was speaking to Dal on the way over here, you know, as a young upcoming coach in New Zealand or Australia, you'd be licking your lips because the MLR, rugby in America in general, are going to start throwing money at bringing coaches over, players. You know, they'll have outside backs who don't make the NFL, who can come and make a huge impact. They'll have big back rowers, big abrasive back rowers. They're going to look to maybe bring in 9s and 10s who can control and manage the game and teach the next guys coming up. Bring in front rowers to teach them how to scrum, to hold their
Imagine getting
scrum.
some of those corn-fed honky cats from like
Iowa
Idaho and
boy.
Nebraska.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're like, I'll shuck some corn. It's like the dudes out of Mice and Men crushing bunnies. What's his name? Lenny. Like, imagine getting that guy and being like, so this is how you pack a scrum. He's like, it's kind of like tipping cows. You're like, kind of, whatever else you sleep at night, psycho. But imagine getting those dudes, man, because they've got 350 million people.
Yeah, that's exactly
and
right.
a diverse country of like athletes. Like,
And so
Shit,
they're going to
man.
start throwing some insane amount of money at this to be successful because, you know, they're going to be on the global stage, right, as the holder of the Rugby World Cup, global prestigious event. And they're going to leave no stone unturned, mate. And as I said, I think it's going to be another huge threat, you know, adding to Japan and the European leagues. I think the American League over the next 5 years, is going to be massive.
old Giltini bloke, he'd be absolutely frothing the bit for this, man. Thank God we got that one. I don't know how much Giltini and Gilgroni money there is to throw around anymore. So, I got to ask this, Dal. So, we saw last weekend the Magic Round, the hype, the actual event itself. Shit, like, compare that to the Super Round down in Melbourne a few weeks ago. You said Super Round was a success. I want to ask you again, can you genuinely say, compared to the Magic Round, was Super Round a success?
No, if you're comparing it to the
Well, I am.
Well, you can't. No.
Well, then, no.
You can't. But my opinion is it's a step in the right direction, right? We didn't have a Super Round last year.
That's true.
So it's a big step, you know what I mean? All of a sudden we're starting to take, you know, a little bit of an idea from rugby league and go, all right, well, this can actually work for us as well.
There's a few other things we'd like to take from rugby league as well, apparently. Speaking of, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah.
DOS? Okay, well, let's throw it out there then.
There's something
Let's
there.
throw it out there because I don't mean to cut in here, Dow, but
Oh, go.
DOS is absolutely fuming over it.
No.
I think if I don't throw to him soon, he's going to kill someone. But it was announced today, Rugby Australia, Hamish McLennan actually came out and said, you know, in the lead up to 2027 World Cup, they're going to actively look to poach players from the NRL who are superstars and did have a rugby background. Guys like Kalen Ponga and, you know, Angus Crichton, Cameron Murray, Christian Welch, whoever it may be. Thoughts?
I see value in what Hamish McLennan says, as I think he's trying to generate more interest in the game and is trying to do it through creating a competition between NRL and Super Rugby. So I do get it, but you know, you spoke before about David Cody coming out and saying we need to invest that money into rugby. Paying NRL players who did play rugby, chose to go play NRL, are now worth so much more than we would have had to pay to keep them in rugby, and then trying to go back to them, paying them, I would imagine, over $1 million each to come back for a Rugby World Cup. I'm unconvinced that they will actually have an impact, that they will actually make a Wallabies team. You know, the likes of, you know, the names floating out, Kalen Ponga, Jaden Sewer, guys who, they would come and they'd create good depth in our Super Rugby teams, but in terms of being the top 15 in the country, I'm not sold yet.
But they've got so many Instagram followers, DOS.
Yeah, I know.
So
And
many
there's-
Instagram
look,
followers.
But in this day and age, you can't deny that fact, right? There's the Kalen Ponga, the rugby player is different to the brand name that you get if he comes over to rugby union, and I understand that side of things. But you know, if they're talking about winning a World Cup, the money has to go into the younger kids coming through school, who in 2027 will be, early 20s, early to mid 20s, and in keeping Harry Wilson, Fraser McWright, Taniela Tupou, Rob Valentini, Geordie Pattaya, keeping all those guys in the country
That's more
up to that.
valuable.
It's way more valuable than throwing $1 million at old mate come over from NRL, in my humble opinion.
I thought you were going to absolutely go hell for leather then, man.
No.
You were looking really agitated
was
before,
him
eh?
going hell for leather.
Yeah, that's it.
He's
Yeah.
irritated.
Yeah, passes out, had a brain aneurysm. But Dow, you're a player agent yourself, so obviously you deal very closely with the players and obviously them staying in the game and so on. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think do you think this is more of just some grandstanding or peacocking against the NRL than anything else after what we saw with Wayne Bennett and your dog-ass mob out there at Nudgee last week?
Yeah, I think it's just a shot across the bow. I
Yeah.
just think they're trying to get one back, and they've now got this. And with the World Cup coming, they're trying to build on it, and they're trying to go, all right, well, we're coming for you now. And the NRL reacted exactly how the NRL would react.
They don't give a shit.
Yeah, we don't care.
He's like, oh, yeah, the boys have a World Cup in UK. I'm like, cool, man. Good luck smashing Lebanon or whoever else you play. But, yeah, no, I think the NRL isn't two-phased.
Nah.
Not at
Quite
all.
rightly. But at least, like, we sat here lamenting a couple of weeks ago that Wayne Bennett literally was just... I can't say that word. I always go to say. But was like just screwing us over to our face, a couple of weeks ago. And we were lamenting the fact that no one's come out and said anything. So at least this is something...
Yeah,
Kind of like
look, and
Super
then
Round. It's step in the
it'll-
right direction.
Exactly, and it'll get conversations going, and it'll at the end of the day, it'll get people talking about rugby, which is what we want. So
100%, mate. Like, as long as we're talking about the game and the fact that we've got 2 World Cups coming up in Australia as well as all this other shit, I am absolutely frothing for it. Speaking of frothing for it, on the blower we have, I reckon if you were to say that you were to build the Mount Rushmore of Western Force heroes, Matt Hodgson would be up there, maybe Nathan Sharp.
Henjack.
I knew you were going to say Matt Henjack. So they throw Matt Henjack up there, and you'd probably say Ian Pryor would be right up there as well. One of the fan favourites from the Western Force is joining us. Ian, how you doing, brother?
Good, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
No, it's an absolute pleasure to have you, mate. I just wanted to get your opinion on this. I don't know if you were tuned into our conversation we were just having in regards to the World Cup and the recent comments from Rugby Australia about going after some NRL talent. You're one of the older heads in the game here in Australia. You've been with the Force for a while now, so you can sort of see the growth of the game over there and within the game here in Australia. What are your thoughts on actively going after the NRL, or at least their players in particular?
Yeah, look, I think I sit sort of on Doss's side here where you want to invest in the guys that are currently in the game, and then, I don't think you need to go out with the checkbook if you want to get guys across. You've got a couple of big things there with, the World Cups, the Olympics, and the British and Irish Lions series, and that if you're interested in the game, that should be enough to get you across if you're competitive and you want to be in there, and if you've got a history in the game rather than sort of paying overs for guys and, not investing in the game and the grassroots itself. That's what I personally think.
That's not a bad answer considering you're wearing a Manly Sea Eagles jersey as well, mate. So, yeah, well done. Very political of you.
It's we have retro cards around here where you got to wear an old school rugby league jersey. Obviously, if I wore an old school rugby union jersey, I can't really wear a Reds or a Tars or a Brumbies one, so I had to go with the rugby league option. So yeah,
Fair enough. We'll let it slide.
it's mate, it's a brilliant jersey. I'm on. I hate Manly, but I do like that jersey. I was glad to see them get beaten. No, exactly. Sitchy, mate, good to have you on. You have obviously, mate, over 100 games for the Western Force, over 100 games of Super Rugby, majority of them with the Western Force. You've been over there since, mate, 2014. Did you leave the Brumbies 2013? 2014, so 8 years now, mate. Enjoying your time over there. How has it been? You obviously seen lots of different phases of Western Force Rugby, Global Rapid Rugby, now back in Super Rugby. How have the guys handled the transition from that Global Rapid back into Super Rugby?
Yeah, you're right. I've been around here a while and seen it all. But yeah, I think obviously Global Rapid Rugby was a bit of a startup, and that was exciting to be part of, and the reason I came back to be able to be part of rebuilding a club and a place I really cared for. So that was super exciting. And then obviously 2020, we were sort of prepped for Global Rapid Rugby and got thrust into Super Rugby with the COVID pandemic, which we sort of enjoyed, but we probably weren't just ready for it. Last year we had a great year, reached the Super Rugby AU finals series, which was really good. Bit of history there for our club. And then this year we've just been there or thereabouts. 6 bonus point losses there. Just haven't quite finished the detail or finished teams off, and last passes, things like that have sort of let us down in critical moments. And as you guys know, momentum's a funny thing in sport and in rugby in general. And when you're winning, you find ways to win, and when you're sort of just coming up short, you keep finding ways to come up short, unfortunately. So, we were really competitive against the Blues there a couple of weeks. Physicality and our skills, and we sort of let ourselves down last couple of weeks there. So we've got a bit of a job to do this weekend on the Chiefs, who super physical and great around the breakdown, and an exciting team to play against.
Ian Dallin here. Mate, you've obviously been around, obviously at the Reds and the Brums, spent some time overseas. Tell us a little bit about the culture and how it's different over there at the moment. Obviously, you guys have been through a fair bit, but you've been able to keep a core group of guys together. And then at the back end of that, you've been able to sign some good young guys coming through. So what's the culture like that, I guess, Tim and you guys as leaders have been able to build over there?
Yeah, so I guess the unique thing about Perth and the Western Force as being a young club is we don't have and we're working on that in the meantime with Andrew and Nicola Forrest and their investments in the grassroots there. So, if you come to Perth and you're not from Perth, you become each other's fans, and, that sort of breeds a great culture there because you're hanging out with each other. You're not just sort of coming to rugby and going out and hanging out with your schoolmates or your uni mates and workmates, that kind of thing. You become each other's family. So, you create this bond and this closeness that's pretty unique. And, obviously we felt that during the Great Wall of WA that went up there for a couple of years. No one could come in and out, so couldn't really so we had a couple of Christmas here. But, yeah, mate, it's just a hard-working sort of club that's ambitious. We recruit, based on character and then skills as well, and making sure that character is a big part of our recruitment. And, we've got good blokes involved, and Tim Sampson, as you guys know, is a ripper fella, and he's been great since he's been rebuilding the club based on values, based on being a good person and being a good rugby player after that. So I think that's shone through in the last 5 years as we've rebuilt this club. And obviously we've got some exciting young talent coming through now that we're nurturing as us older heads sort of get to the older, crustier age of our careers.
Ian, mate, big fat Darcy, mate. I was doing some research and I went on your Twitter bio, and it says you're an accredited exercise physiologist, an aspiring high-performance manager, father, husband, and amateur golfer. How amateur are we talking about with your golfing?
Very, very
nice.
We've got a golf group over here. Over the years, we've had some pretty competitive fellas, and I'm sure Doss will tell you from our battles in the Reds Academy back in the day in the dungeon shed, ping pong table battles there. Pretty competitive bloke, and had guys like Richard Kahui, who are scrap golfers, but some of the most competitive men I've met. So the stakes get pretty high on the putting green there. But, at my best, I was probably playing, anywhere 11 or a 12 there. Rob Carney said he was off single digits and he had a couple of mares here, so it made me feel really good about myself in the golfing space.
Love it.
Hey, Sitch, mate, you talked before about Timmy Sampson and the impact that he's had on the Western Force the last couple of years. I had him as a coach down at Tigers, and I just and spent a bit of time with him. He was coaching the Vikings and I was at the Brumbies, and I could not speak more highly of the bloke. What was, I guess, the general feeling around the club when Simon Cron's appointment got announced? And I guess was there communication between the staff and the players in terms of that change being made, or were you guys a bit caught off guard? Because I can imagine he'd be a pretty popular character within the squad.
Yeah, obviously a super popular member of the squad and done a lot for a lot of guys' careers, I think, which is, when you look at the guys that have debuted in Super Rugby and got to live out their dream over the last few years, he's really, a testament to helping guys get through there. Your Byron Ralstons, Jack McGregor's, Jakey Straughns, Brad Lacey's, all those guys. He's an outstanding man, an outstanding coach. So, yeah, it caught us a little bit by surprise. They brought us in a couple of days before to let us know that the announcement was going out and it was happening. And yeah, it's just, I guess it shows the brutal reality of professional sport and professional rugby, isn't it? You know, coaching space. Obviously, we didn't have a great year in 2020. 2021, we created a bit of history, and then 22, you know, we were just shy of halfway through our season, and you know, the decision had been made because they wanted to go in a different direction, and that's obviously above our pay grade. That call's been made, but you know, the way he's handled himself throughout, as you said, Doss, he's a man of, you know, immense character, and he's handled himself really well there and put the team first. Said, look, guys, I'm still here to finish the year off with you, and let's finish on a high. Obviously, like I said before, we've come up short a little bit, which has been a bit frustrating in a few games. But yeah, it's just like I said, the brutal reality of sport, isn't it? And being a coach, it's it's not for the faint-hearted, that's for sure.
Yeah, mate. No, you're exactly right. You know, you think as a, you know, if you're a player going into coaching, that volatility in your career just never leaves, right? It's just as volatile as a coach as it is a player. And you spoke about, we obviously know, well, we don't know what Sambo's up to next, but for Ian Pryor, you've been over at Perth now for 8 years. I'm not too sure if you're there for another season. You're obviously an accredited exercise physiologist. Thanks, Das.
Amateur golfer.
And a very amateur golfer. But what does the, I guess, what do the next couple of years look like for you and your young family, mate?
Yeah, the big thing now, I'm not just making decisions for myself and my career. It's about, you know, my wife Lizzie and our two little kids, 3 and 8 months old. So a couple of handfuls there, as you would know. So yeah, mate, we're currently in talks about extending. But obviously, I'm at that point in my career. I'm 31, still playing, I feel, some really good rugby. Yeah, and being in a good space there, both on and off the field. So yeah, it's about that. You know, do you stay here for that stability and that great lifestyle that Perth offers? And, you know, obviously I love the club, or do you sort of look for that adventure with the young family? Yeah. Obviously, you've got a bit of this, that, trying to figure out, what's best and what's best for the kids and the family is an interesting one. And then, obviously my next step, I want to stay involved in the game. Done a couple of degrees because I think every contract I've signed, I thought it might be my last. So in there. And I think, you know, just the one thing I think New Zealand does better than Australian rugby is that transition into the game. I think we've got so many good players that have played both here and abroad, and we haven't yet created a pathway to keep them in the game and to keep that intellectual property. Yeah, and all the learning next generation. You know, a lot of guys go into corporate world over here in Australia, and you know, fair credit to them. You know, we've got some smart guys there that do that, but you look at New Zealand, how many former players are either coaching, admin, or involved around professional sport, because it is a unique industry. And if you've lived and breathed it for a few years, you get a lot of learnings, a lot of hard lessons that you can pass on. And I think that would be ideal, is if I could stay involved in the game as a high performance manager, or you know, sort of skills coaching. Don't know if I'd want to be a head coach, as we just discussed before. How family. But that would be the dream, mate. So hopefully we'll have that sorted out in the next sort of month and get a bit of clarity around that, and then go from there. Yeah, well, when you do get it sorted, give us a yell, and we'll have we'll get an exclusive PAC PAC announcement. What do you reckon? Just like John.
Yeah, hell yeah. Yeah, but that was a self-stitch up by him. I was like, he's like, oh, shouldn't have said that. We're like, shouldn't you? Okay, cool. Well, you threw yourself under the bus. Well, I wanted to ask, because obviously the Force are a very unique club in that they were in the competition, obviously got the punt, but then they got that private funding from Twiggy, who just came in and like did some loose shit, like had the new rules for the Global Rapid Rugby. You guys were playing the South China Dragons and all this crazy shit. I want to get your thoughts, because we've discussed here in regards to getting money into the game, and I know that obviously the World Cups and the British Irish Lions are going to be a financial boom for Aussie rugby over the next decade, but do you think there is scope for the entire game in Australia, from Rugby Australia down, for privatisation, a la what Twiggy did with the Force?
Oh, mate, absolutely, 100%. I think there's room for it. It's obviously got to be the right person, the right investment, and as a union, and obviously as a sport, you still need to control where that goes and whatnot. But we had some crazy crazy couple of years playing. We had a skydiver almost take out Jeremy Thrush in the warm up once when the lights went out. I sort of scooted out. He was running a line, and this guy in a paraglider suit just came flying past him. Things like that. But yeah, in all seriousness, I think it's the way forward for the game. If we've been lucky enough to see how he runs his organisation, and they're a high performance unit, both at Tatarang and Minderoo there, and getting that view from outside the game rather than having, obviously it's great to have people that have been in the game and their experience, but to have fresh ideas from outside the game and outside the sport to challenge your norms, challenge your ideas, and think outside the square a little bit, which is what we have to do as a sport now in the next sort of golden decade, as it's been described, because we've got to set it up for the next generation and the generation after. So, yeah, I think, if you look at the people like the guys that have found Atlassian, or however you pronounce it, sorry, they're investing in the Rabbitohs there. So there is opportunities. We just got to look for the right ones and make sure that we obviously use the money in the right way. I like getting Nudgee College back involved in just rugby.
Speaking your language, J-Ball.
Yeah. Screw down.
Yeah. So, there's definitely scope for it, but we've seen it can go wrong previously, I think, with the Rebels and the way that all panned out. But I think, do your due diligence, and there's definitely room for it to go there.
So you're saying we got to get firepower back on the mix? Okay, cool. No, all good. No, well, one thing I wanted to ask you as well is that, we've lamented here the fact that, it seems like there are some players in the game that are sort of, that we are losing them. There's no two ways about it. Guys like Fergus Lee Warner, a man who could sort of play anywhere 4 through 8, bust his ass, and he actually came out and said after he signed to go overseas that he just felt like he wasn't actually getting any communication from Rugby Australia and the coaches up there with the Wallabies in regards to what he needs to do to make the squad. I was chatting to a mate on the weekend, and he was saying that it seems like so many players from the Force, you go over there and you almost go down a rung, and they might even pick a guy from, club rugby in Queensland or New South Wales over you before they go to the Force. Do you think there is any sort of weight in regards to, what happened, the history with the Force, how you're out and then you're back in, and do you reckon that maybe does play a part in regards to, I don't know, like feeling like there is a disconnect in that going up to the Wallabies, as sort of Fergus Lee Warner alluded to?
I wouldn't say at the moment, but calling a spade, probably previously, yeah. A bit of out of sight, out of mind. Obviously, we were a global rapid rugby startup and running in NRC as well, so we probably weren't playing the most competitive rugby against Super Rugby sides week in, week out, so we could understand that back then. And I think Dave Rennie and the coaching group there now have come over to help us out a couple of times, and there seems to be a great alignment and, wanting to build the jersey better and making sure the pathway's there for the guys that want to get there. I think the real challenge for Australian rugby is how do you keep guys in Australia when you do have this overseas money and carrot sort of dangling around? Point in your career where you can, stay here and chase the Wallabies jersey like Ferg could have, or you can go overseas for a couple of years and, set yourself up for that next step in life, which is also pretty important. So, we've got to get creative, because we've heard a few times that Australia doesn't have the depth or the depth of talent, which I think is a load of rubbish. If you look at how many Aussies are playing around the world, we definitely produce enough. You look, Zach Holmes been at Toulouse, one of the best rugby clubs in France for 5-6 years. He was at the Force here. Jakey McIntyre's heading overseas now, another 10. Fergus Lee Warner, these guys. So how do we get creative as a sport and industry to keep them within the game and keep it competitive? If the Wallabies carrot's not there, is it the next step? How do we help them with that, or anything like that? I think that would help. Where you get all your tax back, that would be awesome.
Let them go and just sign NRL players. I think that's the way to go.
Shut up, J-Ball.
Too late. I just think we got, whether that's through opportunities and business or whatever it may be, coaching, but we obviously can't compete with the money. So how do we get creative around that space? Is the question in my mind.
I totally agree with you, Sitch. I think there's a huge space that hasn't been explored yet to do exactly that, and is to keep our guys here. There's, in New Zealand, they talk about the carrot of playing for the All Blacks. The Wallabies jersey, unfortunately, just doesn't have that same pull. And I've asked a few people that question. It'd be interesting to get your insights, Sitch, and you lent on it before. If there was, you talk about ways of keeping guys in the game. Like, do you identify guys earlier? Well, you don't really need to identify. Do you create a program where current players are then exposed to different businesses, different industries? Maybe it's part of, they get a day off, or in your off season, you're doing a bit of time to learn about different businesses. Do you think if there was a proper structure around that and looking guys off the field, would that be a big enough pull to keep guys in the game and stray them away from taking the cash and going overseas?
Yeah, it would definitely be a carrot at the end of the day. Like, if there's a formalised structure to be like, here's a pathway into this, whether it be business or, if we end up under 25s and guys can go and coach in that for experience or whatever it may be. If there's a formalised structure, or you start having flexibility around, okay, if you want to take a injury contract that comes up overseas or things like that in the off season when it's not Super Rugby, everyone sort of benefits in that regard. And yeah, Australia's one of the best countries to live in the world, obviously.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
I think definitely a formalised structure would help. And, just give guys that might not want to go overseas or have partners that have careers here that don't want to give it up.
Yeah.
Or, there's a lot of things there that can sort of work out. So, I definitely think a formalised structure in some capacity would definitely help in that regard. Maybe you can lead that, DOS, the revolution.
Yeah, man. I'd love to. I just think there's a huge opportunity. And then, people talk about the money overseas and whatever. And having done that, having gone to France for a year while the wife was pregnant, my eldest kid was born over there, and then spending the last 3 years in Japan. Well, not the last 3, but the last 3 of my career. Like, going overseas and living overseas, it's not all it's cracked up to be, right?
It's a slog.
Oh, man, it's an absolute slog. And depending on the team that you go to, like I went to Honda and their sort of recruitment plan, it was fairly young. So the guys that came over, we had RG Snyman, Jack Debrasini, were all single guys. And I had Beck, my wife, and my 2 kids. And for her, mate, it was the most terrible 6 months of her life because she was just cooped up in our little apartment with 2 little kids, had no other expats over there to talk to. The kindy, like, obviously everyone speaks a different language, so it's not all it's cracked up to be. So I just think if there's something outside of rugby that you can entice the guys to stay, there's going to be huge value there that can be created, and maybe I will lead some sort of revolution. Thanks, Sitch. Putting ideas in my head.
Good stuff, DOS.
That last little bit got quite intense. Whoa. Hell yeah. Dal, you got anything?
Happy wife, happy life.
Good.
That's it, mate. That is it.
Big Fat Das says he's just got one more question for you. What's up, Big Fat Das?
I don't have one. How much do you earn after tax? I don't have a question.
Nah. Well, I mean, one last thing I wanted to get your thoughts on, because I touched on it when we were talking about Twiggy taking over when you guys started Global Rapid Rugby. We were sort of discussing last week about what we could potentially do after things go to Golden Point, and there was there was some jelly wrestling, and there was a slapping competition. I think Quirky or someone said maybe we just start dropping players off and opening it up. What are some law variations you wouldn't mind seeing? Because we saw Twiggy come out with some pretty twisted shit.
Yeah, look, I'm not the most creative chap, so I don't really know where you'd go with it. But, yeah, I think just cynical penalties is a big one in the game. So, whether that's not your yellow cards, but coming up in some creative way where you drop a player off a scrum or line out, whatever it may be.
Ooh.
And, where there's more enticing of the attack, because that's what everyone comes to watch. Obviously, collisions is a great thing, but everyone wants to watch the attacking rugby. So whether you can, create mismatches or have to defend out on a wing for a set piece or something like that, you could really stitch some big guys up and try and get
That'd be sick.
That'd actually be fun.
Yeah, just for like 2 minutes, forwards have to players' backs and backs have to players' forwards. Imagine Big Pone standing at 10 for the Rebels.
And the one
Actually,
I did
screw
enjoy,
that. You don't want to have that.
Yeah.
the one I did enjoy in Global Rapid was the 8-point try if you scored it from within your own 22, because
Yes.
as we if you exit well, you play well in Super Rugby and Test Rugby, and team kicks off long, you go to a forward pod and you box kick, or you kick long out, and then just, it's kind of like a bit of chess. Whereas if you've got this carrot to be like, cool, there's a picture there, let's go for it. There's 8 points in it, and you run in one. And the Crusaders ran in one against us, the Glow Rapper, which was pretty good to watch on Jason. Fired up. But, they're incentive to have a crack, and that was the biggest thing, I think. And having that in the back of your mind, you're not always just thinking, let's get out of our end and, just defend well. It's sort of like, okay, where's the opportunity? Is there one to go here? Let's try and do it. So stuff like that, I think, is massive.
Yeah, I reckon that would be absolutely awesome to see. So let's see if Twiggy can put his hand up to take over Rugby Australia, everyone. But Ian, thanks so much for joining us, brother. As I said, mate, you're an absolute linchpin of the Western Force community, and they're very lucky to have you, mate. All the best for the rest of the season, and hopefully you're there for another couple of years with a young family. You can progress further with them, mate. But yeah, thanks very much for joining us.
No worries, guys. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Cheers, brother.
Thanks, man.
Round of applause for Ian Pryor, everybody. Mate, he's got some pretty good ideas.
He was
man.
brilliant.
He is,
Really
man. He
smart
was a
guy.
switched on cat.
Humble.
Yeah.
He's a smart
He-
man. And he's not an average golfer, is he?
No, he's a good
Oh,
guy.
Yeah,
mate,
he's
he's
a
like,
good
oh,
He's a
at
good
my
golfer.
best, I was sort of, like 10 or 11
11.
scratch. I'm like, dude, average golfer is like
10 or 12
100 plus
beers.
all the time.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
Sitch was one of those guys. He's good at all sports. He was a good cricketer. He went to Ormiston College, good golfer. And what I like about him is similar to Jock. We were the same age. He was the reserve halfback for our Queensland 2 schoolboys team. So essentially the 5th or 6th string halfback in Queensland schoolboys, and he's gone on to play over 100 Super Rugby games. He typifies that persistence and that drive, and it's everything that a coach wants in a player. And it was great to hear him talk about how he actually does want to be involved in the game after he's done, because I mentioned I think when we were talking about Benny Moen a few weeks ago, getting more guys coming into coaching, but having guys, and he's in an interesting position where I reckon he'd be sitting over there sort of just soaking in everything Twiggy Forrest has to say and what he's doing and how he runs a business. And so there'll be so much value in keeping a guy like
Mate,
Ian involved in the game.
A brilliant idea that you like, whilst you've actively got players that are in the setup, actively sort of teach them the principles of running a sports administration or working within the sporting community. Like,
I mean,
why not?
Yeah.
There's money to be made. There's business to be had. So I guess it's a very smart thing to be looking beyond the career as well, because then it becomes, as you said, a carrot that can hopefully lure them back to the game here in Australia.
And you just have to, J-Ball. Like, you just have to. And the kids need to understand at a younger age that they need to get that off the field side to their life sorted. They need to have interest. No matter, not everyone wants.
Like one serious injury and your career could be over.
Yeah, that's it. Not everyone wants to go and do a degree, so it might be chipping away at a trade. We have a lot of Islanders in the game, so it might be creating that connection with doing some youth work through the church groups, and it could be anything. Just having some interest out of the game that you're consistently working on. So when the day comes that you're no longer playing rugby, it's not your whole identity, and you're not, I just hear about so many guys who go through suffer tough transition because all they knew was rugby, all they identified was with rugby. And just to have an outlet and not identifying yourself as a rugby player, just as a person who's really good at playing rugby and enjoying it in that way, there's so much value and so many benefits to go with that.
Yeah, bloody oath. Well, you were just talking about Benny Moen. We may as well, just before we kick it over to you, Das, we'll discuss. We didn't get a chance to do it last week, and obviously Grace wasn't able to join us this week, but we saw over the last couple of weeks the Wallaroos playing their first test matches in, 3 years? The Friday night, they got away with a 36-19 win over Fijiana before that Reds match, and then a few days later, going down at Bond University on a Tuesday evening, 12-10 to the Japanese. A hell of a lot of people, I don't think, picked that one down. But women's game is finally back on the map after a few years off. How bloody good, especially after seeing that awesome Super W season.
Yeah, and don't you love it? Obviously, Test matches back. They've got a World Cup later this year.
Yeah.
Which is really, really exciting for
In
them.
New Zealand?
Yeah, I think so, which
Yep.
is really, really exciting. And they're obviously preparing for that. But you just love to see the women's game being promoted so well, and the Aussie Sevens girls back on top. You know what I mean? There's a lot going on in that space, which is great to see. We just Got to keep building it up.
And a lot of good news stories, in particular, Big Fat Das, Liz Partu, our friend from the Doggies. She became the most capped Wallaroos player of all time with 25 caps. Very well deserved. She is an absolute gun.
Yeah, mate. And but it does show that because she's been top of the game for 5, 6, 7 years or something.
A while.
In the Wallaroo team. And she's been quite dominant and still, but they've only played 25. She's only been able to play 25
caps.
games.
Yeah, well, hasn't played a test for 3 years.
That's such a shame or whatever. And seeing the girls back playing again, and that's awesome.
Mate, absolutely awesome. I mean, I don't think anybody would have been picking a 12-10 score in favour of the Japanese.
Were they just an unknown quantity, the Japanese side? Or
Where is the
ran
team
it.
picked from? Like the Japanese
Japan.
women's team? Obviously, I know that. What competition are they playing in? Is there... amazing. But I did see that Benny Moen and Berwick Barnes were coaching them that night.
Yes.
That's why you
yeah.
said Benny Moen.
That's why I said Benny Moen. I was
did.
going to get to that. But we could,
I was like, what is it?
no, because, I mean, we saw, the Japanese fell to the Barbarians on the Friday afternoon to the Aussie Barbarians out at the kennel. But then a few days later, coming away with a 12-10 scoreline over what was actually a pretty bloody strong Aussie side. But as you said, coached by Berwick Barnes and Ben Moen. Not a bad replacement considering their coaches all caught COVID.
Yeah, no, exactly. And did they... The Japanese team, they beat Fijiana as well, didn't they?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they've obviously got a bit about them. And then, no better guys than Benny Moen and Berwick to, bring the best out of them in terms of their skill sets.
Easy there, Doss. No, but I mean, talking in regards to what you were saying about what competition they play in, I know for a fact they've got a very strong women's sevens competition. Players like Tyler Nathan Wong have all gone over and they spent time there. Maddie Lucas's wife,
Alicia
Quirk. Yeah, Quirky's over there as well now, getting
okay.
back, getting the boots back on. Hopefully, she's trying to make it for the Olympic side. So they've got a very, very strong women's professional competition. So, I mean, it just goes to show. Oh, the Japanese beat the Barbarians. Oh, yeah, they did actually beat the Barbarians. My bad. Thanks for pointing that out, Zach. Could have looked like an idiot. Damn it. Oh, you made me look like an idiot. Speaking of idiots, now it's time for Big Fat Das and the Battlers bench. Big Fat Das, you got a few things you wanted to
I believe I do. I was meant to have Freeney here with me, but mate, over the weekend there was a couple of big hits, and I thought we'd run through a couple of them, a couple of big hits, a couple of funny things that happened. Zach, hit us with this first one.
This is unreal.
Now, this isn't the WA comp. Now, can we please replay that one, Zach? Because a lot of people are saying that was like a hospital ball, but he got that ball like 6 meters before the man. He had plenty of time to not do that.
Yeah.
Now, medic, right? What do you reckon, hospital ball or not?
Not at all.
Could have avoided contact, right?
Yeah.
I would have gone, not for me, let it go.
Yeah.
Classic move. I was like, up here, not here.
Or the Freeney. Oh, it went straight through my hands.
Through my little butterfingers. Then this one.
There's this big pone, Fata Malsili, the big pony.
Oh.
Mate.
And then the shove after he makes the hit.
Gosh. He's been good since
Yeah.
coming back from injury, hasn't he?
He's such a fit, like, active kind
Fit,
of
big
prop.
guy. Yes.
Right?
Oh, mate. Absolutely deleted.
This is over in America, I think, isn't it?
He's putting it down.
Wrong try line, buddy.
Wrong line.
Just got to ground it, go for the dropout.
Go back, Zachy. What
Go back,
happened?
roll it back.
He put it over the wrong line.
Yeah. He's just like watching the D. Going, I'll just quickly. Boom. Look at his mate. Look how annoyed his mate was. It ripped the ball off his dead body. He went, you idiot. Boom. His mate's like, give me that.
Oh, it's brilliant.
Oh, then here's another big hit. Where's this one from? Where's this one from? That's me. Just kicked it down.
Wow.
Yeah, wow.
Absolutely fizzed that one.
And then,
Yeah,
just stopped him. Righto. And then you'll see, I'll pin my arms back. I know, yeah, cool. That's because I cannot feel my arms at all. Someone hit me. I was like, ow.
I love that you just snuck your own little highlight in there, big fat ass.
Hey, you got it. No one else will.
I mean, mate, Freens plugs himself every week.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was actually a good play.
Exactly.
Freeney,
Yeah.
knocks the ball on. He's like, meant it. What else, big fat ass? Says here you had something else you wanted to discuss in regards to Jordan Barrett's lack of sideburns.
I do. A very great haircut, and I thought we'd go through a couple of other notable haircuts. Is this that Romanian player?
Andrei Garbuzov from the Russian team.
He kind of looked like Lockie Swinton.
He did. Oh,
Is that that's Sione?
Sione. On the weekend.
Was that
There
the
he
weekend?
is.
Yeah.
Sione
Just-
looking good.
Oh,
Is that
Mark
Elmer Fudd?
McBain. Oh, that's just.
That's
and
a
look at
shocker, eh?
Stan Pilecki with the cigar. Oh,
Oh,
a couple of
two of the
monumental
best.
haircuts. I love it.
To
No one ever
Jonas'
told
little
Jonu
tufted
that he
hair.
had a
Yeah.
Only he can get away with that. Sebastian Chabal.
Wow.
Oh, the
Keithy
the
Wood.
raging potato.
Keithy Wood.
Is that Wengalewski from the US side? They're
Marler.
Chance Wengalewski, Joe Marler.
Fiddle fingers.
Oh, the honey
badge.
badger. That's one of the greats, eh?
Yeah.
How good's
Okay,
that,
looks
eh?
like his name's Taint. McDermott.
It's a ripper.
Oh, here we go. Higgers with old Radicki. Mr. Pro, look at that.
Dallas.
Corbin Dallas.
There he
And
is,
there's
Jordan
back to
Barrett.
Jordy
No
Barrett.
sideburns,
No,
man.
None at all. Oh, there's one more. That's an in-action shot too. No, that one's snug in there. Oh, we're back on it.
That's a corker.
Brilliant.
Oh,
It's the undercut.
that is sick. You should bring it back now.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Can you?
Really?
Dry my hair,
Are you really?
yeah.
Yes.
Sick. Show us. Oh, that
it
is
is?
nice.
Okay.
That is so
A
nice,
ringing
man.
wet. That could look a lot like that. I think you're
I
nearly there,
reckon
I think.
You should get a haircut like Tate McDermott had. Wasn't that a
Straight
cracker,
down.
eh? Just straight down behind his ears.
I tell you what, it was hilarious. It was 2018, and Thorny told him, he said, mate, he played a couple of games, and then Thorny pulled him aside. I think it was before we went to South Africa, and he just said, mate, you have to cut your hair. You are not allowed to play anymore or train until your hair's cut. And there was a couple of them. It was Tate. Oh, geez, I can't remember who the other guys were.
Was it Higgins? He told him to shave his head bald, just give it up.
No, his hair just fell out. And I remember when Tate, he cut it, and he was so embarrassed about how he looked for, a good month.
Because it sort of went into that, like, Nick Carter.
It was like a Nick Carter.
It was kind of weird looking.
That's exactly what it was. And then, but then we went to Africa, and he was pulling birds. I was like, oh yeah, Tate, it's working for you, mate.
Yeah, it's just it's that Grom lifestyle, mate. He would have fit in over there, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that little surfer boy vibe. Good on him. Big Fat Das, anything else?
Zachy, anything else? What's that? Yeah. I think I've got two more clips. Is that right?
Oh, my God.
Yep. Let's do it.
Come on.
Yes. This is the first. Oh, don't worry about this one. Not this one, not this one. Not this one. Not this one, Zachy. Zachy next.
What is
Zaggy
that,
next.
man?
That was just me playing around. That was a private message. That was a private video I sent to you. This one. Now, this is a big hit.
Is this it?
Dal
What's
and
the name?
Doss. I think this is top of the Alliance
Yeah, the Alliance
stairs.
Trophy.
Trophy night, maybe 10 years ago.
2013.
Kaboosh! Okay. And then wait. Whoa. That's my favourite bit. Then he goes, oh God, Gorko's here. Quick, better pretend to clean up. There's Gorko.
Yeah, skinny Gorko is.
Oh, yeah. How skinny everyone is in that video. That was a big hit. Are you? I think you're close to 500,000.
500,000 views on
500,000
YouTube.
views on that.
Yeah.
If anyone wants to find that one, that's a perfect dismont. YouTube.
Zach,
There
can
you
you
go, let's get some more
rerun?
Yeah, go again. Okay, go again. Have you guys not seen this before?
No, I haven't. Holy.
Gorko's not happy.
No, he was loving it.
Have you paid for that vase yet?
Nah.
Nah.
I said we'll go halves in any YouTube takings.
What happened, Jay?
He was trying to rail
Just
slide.
slipped.
Push, crack. No, mate, just that. Whoa. What happened there?
Oh, that is brilliant. That is brilliant.
And then,
And people often ask, they're like, why don't you drink anymore?
there you go. Pat in the back. Go, guys.
Yeah, who's the bird coming to your side?
Some random. Because my head hit the door and it flew open. I'm like, what? And she's like, what the
She spotted an opportunity.
Yeah, she was thirsty. Yeah, she's like, you're right. I'm like, don't touch me.
Clean up your vase.
I'm like, don't touch me. As my shirt's undone, covered in shit. I hadn't shaved my head or my beard in 6 months. I was like, I'm not shaving anything, not cutting my hair or shaving my beard until we lose. And then we ended up winning the premiership, so I look like a psycho. There's also a photo from the Mad Monday that Big Fat Das, I think, has in possession that I hope
We'll come out at a later date.
Yeah. We'll see
it's
what
not
happens.
good, man. It's real bad. It's
Zach, hit us with a pick. No, we don't have it. Look at him. Oh, my God.
Oh, man,
He's out
what
of here.
is it?
Nothing. Anyway, I think that's it, Zachy. There you go.
oh man, my heart.
It's it, didn't
Did
it?
I?
Hit us with a pick.
Oh man, it's not good. Oh,
Show us.
Yeah.
do you actually still have it?
I think I do. Somewhere. I'm one of my 5110s or something.
Oh man, my hands are shaking. Hey,
Surely it's in the cloud somewhere.
In the cloud.
no, I think it was pre-cloud.
But it's been uploaded to the cloud.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's pretty bad. My face is all tingly. I'm so sweaty.
Yeah, God, you're
So
sweating bullets.
sweaty, eh? Oh man. It didn't handle that one well, eh? Oh man, it's pretty bad. It's bad when like there are photos of me with my like tiny penis out and stuff like that, and I would rather those ones out. Straight up.
Wow.
Well, that's the end of the episode. It's not actually. We've got some rugby we've got to discuss. Man, I'm so sweaty. My hands are shaking. Super Rugby, round 13. Third last round of the competition. Saw a few blowouts and a couple of Aussie sides didn't shit the bed a little bit. So the Highlanders 61-10 over the Force. Absolutely pumped them over there. The Brumbies going down to the Satyrs 37-26. Brumbies really not playing their best game of footy, in particular the first 40-odd minutes. The Drua versus the Moana Pacifica 34-19. So looks like Moana Pacifica. Sorry, are probably going to be rounding out the wooden spoon there. The Blues 53 over the Reds 26. We're not going to discuss that one. And the Rebels shitting the bed. The Chiefs after the siren coming away with a 33-30 victory. But the game I want to discuss is that Canes versus Tars one. The Canes coming from 15-0 down at the half, scoring the first points in the 42nd minute to come away with a 4-point win. Dow, I mean, we were waxing lyrical about how good the Tars have been, but, mate, they would be lamenting this loss big time.
Yeah, absolutely. It was almost a tale of two halves, right? They were exceptional in that first half. Then Owen Franks and the like come on and are absolutely exceptional and really put it to them. I think they'll be disappointed. I think DC will be really disappointed. It's one that got away for them. They should have won that game and should have
Yes.
won it well. And
In front of a pumping crowd at Leichhardt.
Which is great to see.
yeah, and
Yes.
it's interesting. Jake Gordon came out after the game and said, "We can't play finals anywhere else. We play finals here. This is
At
where we wanna
20,000
play."
capacity.
Yeah.
And people are standing.
pumping.
And they
Yeah,
want to
yeah, yeah.
stand. Like, you don't mind going to a footy game if you're standing on a hill chopping piss.
Yeah.
You don't.
No.
I'd much rather stand on my feet for 2 hours chopping piss with the boys than sit in a half-empty Suncorp Stadium.
100%.
But, mate, it was a tale of two halves, and just alluding to what you were saying before, Dos, about, outside backs coming from rugby league to rugby union don't win World Cups. Look at what Owen Franks did. Two-time World Cup winner. At his peak was easily the best tight head prop in the world. Angus Bell was twisting Tyrell Lomax up for the first 34 minutes and then gave away 3 penalties on the trot to Owen Franks. Like, that right there just shows you can't buy class like
The old
that.
ball.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And, and then to compliment him, he also had Dane Coles come on at the same time. and it just shows the value of at Super Rugby level. These days they like to be called finishers, but having those guys on your bench, and it speaks to what we've spoken before. They've got Tyrell Lomax and who's the young hooker at the Hurricanes?
Asafo Aumua.
Yeah, they've got those two guys, brilliant young prospects, starting the game. And then when it's in the balance, as a coach, you've got the comfort of bringing on Owen Franks and Dane Coles to shut it out, which is, I'm sure he could have gone overseas and I think, did he go overseas?
Yeah.
He did go overseas and he came back and, maybe that's a model that they could, potentially steal. But, you see guys like Scotty Seo coming into his 30s.
He's looking beefy too, eh?
And looking good, and there's so much value for, the next 4 or 5 years that they can still add to the game in Australia. And it really sort of showed us in that specific situation, that value that I just talked about.
I think the Tars they are on the rise.
Oh, yeah.
An old Tars side would have lost that by 30.
Yeah, losing Izzy Parisi to an MCL is devastating.
God, that hurt.
Yeah, and I mean,
he was so good prior, man.
Oh yeah, he's been he's been the pick of the Aussie backs over the last couple of weeks against the Kiwi team. So he's going to be a big loss. I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure who they replace him with, but they'll definitely miss his impact. But it was the same old guys. Jed Holloway was outstanding. I like the look of that. The reserve hooker that came on, who I think he played for Gordon.
Mahe Vailana.
Yeah.
Mate, he's a gun.
He
was the
the
catch pole medalist a couple of years ago when they won the
He went to
comp.
LA last year,
Yeah.
came back with DC.
Yeah, he looks good.
He's
he looks the goods.
long-term prospect, in my opinion.
Yeah, and should pour water over whatever conversation there was about Tolu Latu coming back. Don't think we need him.
He'd be lucky to get through customs.
Yeah.
He's loose, mate.
And that
Latu is so loose.
that back rower as well, number 20 that came on. for
Lungy
the Tars.
Gleeson.
Yeah, he was great.
Mate, he's been the guy that's really turned the Manly Marlins season around. I love him to bits. Absolute gun out of St. Augustine's College, maybe, or some shit. But, oh, man, it killed me because he was the guy who knocked that ball on inside the 22 where it allowed the Canes to come down. But you can see what he does, man. Like, he is just nothing but enthusiasm, man. And that's the sort of guy, that, like, 20, 21-year-old who's just full of piss and vinegar like that to come on and just has so much potential. I reckon under DC he's going to be near unstoppable. What are your thoughts, Daz?
Mate, just the Waratahs just kind of shut off after the first half. Artie Surveyor with the try in the 74th minute.
He's a gun.
Yeah,
He's
God, he's so good.
Let's get him on the show.
Let's get him on.
Done. Artie Surveyor, come on the show next week. Thank you very much. Hospital Cup, round 3. Only one match was played because it was pissing down
In the
outside. The annual Mud Bowl, West 31-15 over Bond. How did this game go ahead? This was shit show. Mate, this was insane.
Games, surely they went, us two.
Mate,
Right?
that field is never going to be the same again.
It's ruined for the whole year.
Forever.
Yeah.
What can you do? Just burn it down and start again. That field is munted. But I think they were really pushing it because it was an opportunity to get the Bunter Bowl. Wet weather, obviously, really conducive to the Doggies. Their dominant forward pack was red hot again on the weekend. But shit, man. Was it worth it? Because that field's munted.
You tell me, mate. They played 3 games on it, right?
4.
Colts, 4.
Colts, Rezzies, first grade women's.
It's incredible.
Some cracking photos coming out of the women's game from the QPR Instagram because it was nighttime, lights on.
Water everywhere.
Mud, man. It was sick. But, mate, this game was so hectic. But, yeah, it was exactly what you anticipated. Massive West forward pack. Shithole field.
Piggy's rolling it up.
What did you expect? Like, it was just over the top of them. Over a smaller Bond pack.
When will all the other games get replayed?
In the bye round,
bye
I
round?
think they said. There's 9th of July. Thank you, Zach. Zach coming through with the goods. Shoot Shield round 6. Again, there was another a few really big wins here. Uni 21-15 over East. West Harbour going down 28-12 to Eastwood. They're getting back in the winner's circle. The Rats 36 over the Two Blues 29. So very close, very hard fought, very good game of footy. But unfortunately, the Two Blues run comes to an end. Still love them. Still want to kiss them on the lips. Gordon 21 goes down to North's 22, that North side derby. These guys hate each other, and it was spiteful, and it was one hell of a game of footy. The Wicks getting up 26-19 over Souths, not having their best season, but absolutely massive. The Hunter Wildfires on their home track dust the table-topping Manly Marlins 25-21. Mate, they are a force to reckon with. We've seen the Two Blues, big fat dust, but the Wildfires, mate.
Have the Wildfires still just got a massive team?
Thick
Oof,
neck. There's about
love it.
There's the equivalent of like 2 necks between all 8 forwards.
Oh, that's not a bad ratio.
Yeah.
So they've slimmed up this year.
Sorry, throw the half back in there and the 12 and 13 as well, then it actually starts to sparse out. But, mate, they've picked up guys like Dow, Rob Puliovea. He's been absolutely huge. His leadership has been absolutely massive for him.
Yeah, absolutely. He's been leading from the front. Obviously, he comes down from West last year. Been huge for them. And I think they're just pretty cohesive.
Because they've still got a lot of their old players. Like, they've still got a lot of their old core group that are sticking around. Like, Will Feeney at fullback's absolutely playing the house down on the back of a back line and forward pack that's starting to get some roll on. They're showing what they can do.
And Scott Coleman's done really well and bringing some new guys in, and he's got some good balance and depth in the side now, which I think's pretty exciting for them.
And injecting someone like Lona Halaholo, we saw him last year. Mate, he was red hot for the students, and he's going down. Like, I know they've got a very strong back row in the Tars there, but Dos, do you reckon he'd be knocking on the door?
I think so, and if not at the Tars, you know, if I was his agent and if he was with Dal, he'd probably have a gig. There you go, mate.
Over in Rome. Mania.
Mate, I said a gig. I didn't say where.
That's true.
But, yeah, I mean, you know, he's one of the guys I'm sure that Super Rugby teams are looking at and keeping a keen eye on. And if the if the Wildfires can continue to cause these sorts of upsets, it's only going to further push his case.
Hell yeah, mate. The Shoot Shield, it's back to the parody that we saw a few years ago in QPR, where it was just anyone can win on their day, and it started to show. It then transitioned into players being of Super Rugby standard once they hit that Super Rugby professional arena. So it's only onwards and upwards for the Shoot Shield. It's good to see it's so heavily contested. All right, let's round this out. Rugby of the round last weekend. Dos, who you got?
Mate, I really liked that Highlanders number 8, Mikaeli Tu'u.
Marino.
Yeah.
I asked my wife, I was like, what if we called our son Marino? She was just like
the wolf?
No, you can't.
Lanolin?
I'm like, why not? She's like, he's just not going to be a huge, mouldy number 8 for the Highlanders. I was like, could be. But he's a gun. Man.
He's a gun. He was brilliant. But
he's beefed up so hard from last year too.
Yeah, I think he's obviously been hitting the gym, but I like to keep it within Australia, and I think young Rob Leota at the Rebels was outstanding on the
Rob
weekend.
Leota,
Just
man.
a sustained 80-minute performance. He physically imposed himself, and he was working hard, which will be a good sign for the Wallabies leading into this Test series against England.
Love it. Dow, your rugby.
There's a bloke at West on the weekend who sat there drinking piss in his
Hunter Thomas?
in his RMs, his Speedos, and his pack of cigarettes in his togs. I don't know his name.
Who was it?
But
who
he's
was
an
that?
Absolute weapon of a human being.
Was he shit canned?
Yeah, he was absolutely blind.
What
but
was
that's
his
all he
rig
was
like,
wearing.
though?
He was shredded.
Oh,
Real good.
okay.
Who are we
There
thinking?
was a few shredded blokes.
Did he
down
look
there.
like he'd played?
Yeah, he looked young, but
We're putting
Yeah.
the call out then.
If we can
Whoever
find
this
him.
player is, so whoever it was at the kennel, young buck, wearing what? His budgies,
maybe even pack
RMs,
budgies, yeah.
a pack of ciggies
Like
in his
rollies,
chungers,
rollies in his chungers.
Oh, like a pack of
smoking
drum or
darts
something.
and slamming piss.
I love it.
At the kennel last weekend against Bond. So whoever it is, please reach out because I think Dow's keen to catch up. You can find him on Grindr. Rugby of the round for you, big fat Dust.
Mate, I just like the way the 13 from the Drua plays. Abasalomi Vota.
He's gone.
These 2 tries. I just love that nuggety, physical kind of bloke. And he's quick too.
I agree.
And Jerome Hughes. P.S. We should get Jerome Hughes to come over for the World Cup.
Yeah, get him to
Right.
change codes
Yep.
and country.
Yep.
Why not?
Perfect.
Sound investment, if you ask me.
Oh,
My
yeah.
rugby, I've waxed lyrical about him today. Owen Franks, man. I know he's the reason, essentially, why the Tars lost, man. But there's nothing better than seeing a front rower like that just turn the screws at scrum time, and it just shows just how valuable something like that is, man.
Spoken like a true front rower. Everyone else finds it annoying. Go, oh, God. Scrums again, whereas you're like, yes, this is the best part of footy. I love it.
Look at this dude.
Look at this guy.
What a wanker. Whatever, man. We've got a little something here going on, Zach. What are we? Zach wants to bring something up. Hold up. Oh, we might have this bloke. Zach's just going to find this bloke. So while we're doing that, Big Fat Dust, what do you got planned for this weekend, mate?
This weekend,
It's a long way away.
it is a long way away. I've got a... I'm getting married. You guys are coming. Zach, you coming?
Thanks.
I think I got a first birthday party.
Oh, they're good fun.
Yeah, pretty good.
Yeah.
A couple of beers. Should be
It's not for the
easy.
kid,
Bread?
obviously.
Nah. I was like, who's there? More? I don't know. Maybe
How much do you earn before tax?
It's a very personal question.
Isn't it?
Like gross or net? Which
Gross is before tax.
Gross is before. Oh. Oh, yeah. Nah, I can't tell you. It's very rude of you. Have we found it yet, Zach? What's going on?
I don't know. He's trawling the internet.
It's brilliant.
Hold up. Here we go.
This guy.
Oh, there
That
he is.
guy.
So old mate on the left there
Yeah. Look at him. They do a close-up of him.
of
He's
his
wearing,
lunch.
He's wearing PAC. Is it? Is it PAC?
Nah, they're doggies
Oh,
budgies.
doggies. Look at him. He's got his rolling.
Oh,
What a man.
there we go. Oh,
yes.
that.
Those traps.
Look at those traps. Trap City.
A mullet.
Nice. I know what you mean. I'm rock
Yeah.
hard too.
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
Can we get him some pack budgies?
Yeah, I'm sure we've got a few pack budgies going around. They're over in the Guiltinis versus San Diego Legion game at the moment. But Johnny and Sione over there just getting on the piss. It's looking pretty weird, man. So keep your eyes peeled on the Pack Insta because shit's about to get real funky. They go to Maggot Fest this weekend. It's a 3-day 15s tournament. Several hundred players go, and it's at Missoula Maggot, so it's in the middle of nowhere in Montana. And this year they have gotten permission to shut down an entire city street or city block for the after party. Apparently they were there a couple of years ago and Ron Jeremy was just walking around just being a creep. And Sione was meant to be filming everyone. He just followed Ron Jeremy around. Just pissed ass. Hence why we haven't seen that footage, because apparently it's very strange. Quick, throw that pick up. Deflect. Please don't. All right, well, that rounds out this week's episode of The Pack Show. Big Fat Dust, Dawson Dallin, thanks so much for joining us. As per usual, it's been an absolute corker. Zachy boy on the ones and twos, thank you very much once again. Be sure to tune in next week. We're hoping we can try and get Grace Hamilton. Hopefully she's not got any more Wallaroos duties, but it'll be awesome to get her on the blower. We're hopefully trying to get a couple of Kiwis in the mix as well next week, which would be absolutely awesome. But we'll keep you posted. In the meantime, enjoy the weekend. Kiss your mum. Eat your vitamins. See you next week.